Let's call the meeting to order. It's November 28, 2022. You have received agenda which was circulated earlier. Any changes to that agenda? None. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated?
Moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, the second item is review and approval of draft minutes of August 12, 2022. Any changes to the minutes of August 12? None. If I then may I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right. Item number 3 on our agenda is update from the clerk. Kate, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, members. It's very nice to see you here in this committee proceeding today. I know that everybody has finished a very busy stretch of time with our fall sitting period, and on behalf of our executive team, I wanted to thank all of the various departments within the Legislative Assembly administration for their incredible efforts to support all of you and your staff during the fall sitting period. It's been an extraordinarily busy time for all, but I'm very pleased that we have now been able to successfully conclude the fall sitting period, and looking forward to supporting you as members of this committee with respect to a number of organizational priorities, many of which we will be speaking about today. I'll just note that it's been a very busy period, in particular for our Hansard Services team, who we recognized and celebrated their 50th anniversary as part of the Legislative Assembly a few weeks ago. As part of our collective ongoing commitment to accessibility, I was also very pleased that the team was able to incorporate American Sign Language broadcast into the routine business proceedings portion of House proceedings during the fall sitting period. I'm looking forward to receiving an assessment of that innovative addition to our broadcast proceedings, and looking forward to bringing forward any recommendations for your consideration. Hansard also continued to drive innovation with the ongoing refinement of the automated speech recognition technology, which was implemented earlier this year to support the editing team in preparing transcripts of proceedings. So while Hansard's broadcast advancements in audio technology also helped us ensure that the Birch Room was put to the test as part of the 3 active chambers in the in-house proceedings just last week. And so special thanks to the Hansard broadcasting team for all of their hard work and innovation throughout the fall sitting period. I'll also note, as part of our service excellence strategic goal, new service technology has been implemented by our information technology team. This, combined with engaging and listening to our users, is an important ongoing commitment for the Legislative Assembly administration as we enter the final stretch in terms of modernizing our IT infrastructure, particularly the networks and the constituency offices across the province. So much good work by the administration team in many different facets of our administration, and looking forward to the discussion with all of you, all members, later this morning. I know we have a fulsome agenda, including a number of in-camera items at the end of the agenda, so I'll pause there so we can continue with the many agenda items before us this morning. Thank you.
Any question for Kate? Any comments? None. Thank you, Kate. Okay, let's move on to item number 4, MLA travel guidelines and the reimbursement of flights. Artur, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, committee members. Last year, your committee made a decision to modify on a temporary basis the Members' Guide to Policy and Resources to permit the reimbursement of prepaid flights. That was extended earlier this year until November 30th, 2022. And my understanding from discussions with caucuses is this continues to be a pinch point for members, given the uncertain nature of flight operations. So the recommendation before the committee this morning is to extend this temporary provision until the end of the upcoming spring sitting period to May 31st, 2023. And given that this continues to be uncertain, we will be undertaking a further assessment in the spring and bring any recommendations on a permanent revision to the policy provisions on a go-forward basis beyond what is proposed, the temporary extension that is proposed. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any question for Artur? Any
Yeah, I have
comment?
a question,
Sorry,
Chair.
Todd?
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. So I really just a comment because Artur basically answered what I was going to ask, and that was if we were going to consider a permanent revision to this policy. I would strongly suggest that we should do that. And I would just point out that I know this would be the case with a number of government members that represent ridings in the interior and the north. Travel is a problem. It was a challenge before the pandemic. It continues to be a challenge today with the airlines in particular. And so we would have all kinds of situations where members, if they didn't book well in advance for a seat on a flight that is very limited in frequency, it would cause significant challenges for that member to get to and from Victoria. So I don't see any downside as to why this policy, which very rightfully so has been altered on a temporary basis to this point, and I certainly support it continuing to be that way through to the end of the spring session. I just would like to humbly suggest that we address this on a permanent basis as soon as possible thereafter. Thank you.
Jigru?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do support the recommendation, but there's a minor change I would like to propose. The recommendation right now is to extend the exemption to May 31st, which is actually a Wednesday, to accommodate the spring session. So typically we sit until Thursday, if that's the case. So I would propose just to, so we don't have any unintended consequences, that we should amend the date to June 30th, 2023.
Corley?
I would like us to consider that we make a motion to move this as a permanent policy.
Okay. Any further comments? Okay, so somebody should move. Artur, I think you need a proper amendment to read that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put what Corley proposed up on the screen.
Okay.
And if she would like to move it, I'll leave that to her.
Okay, Corley, now it reads.
Yeah, I move that further to the resolution of the committee of May 27th, 2021 and January 31st, 2022 members' travel guidelines on airfare be modified in the members' guide to policy and resources to promote the reimbursement of prepaid flights.
Okay. Any seconder? And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried as amended. Now to the main motion as amended. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Now, item number 5, car sharing, eligibility for reimbursement policy revision recommendation from the subcommittee on administration and operations. Artur, please.
Thank
Walk us through that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Earlier this fall, the Subcommittee on Administration and Operations considered adding car sharing expenditures as an eligible business expense to the members' guide to policy and resources to be reimbursed upon the provision of a receipt for the business trip undertaken. Just for clarity, this does not include the reimbursement of car share memberships, and it's just any business trips taken as part of a car share. So the recommendation before the committee today is to add car sharing as an eligible business expense to the travel sections of the members' guide to policy and resources. So this would apply both to members' travel as well as to constituency assistant travel for those members who do have a CA travel allowance as part of their CO budget.
I see 2 hands up for Todd and Jigru. Are they from the previous motion or is it new? No? Okay. All right, so it's recommended as option 2. I'll read the recommendation again and somebody need to move it.
Mr.
It's
Speaker, I do think that your group wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to say that I have actually heard from a member that I understand the intention here is to allow car sharing as an eligible reimbursement for full cost of the trip, but that does not include the membership fee. In this case, that's not claimable. So I just want to inform the members about that. There's a car share membership fee that is not part of this.
That's correct. Yes, that was discussed by the subcommittee, and the recommendation that they brought forward to the committee is that membership fees are not reimbursable.
Okay. Any further comments? If not, somebody to move that motion.
Moved.
It's been moved. Somebody to second it. It has been seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Item number 6 is MLA attendance at community events by donation. So again, Kate, please walk us through that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So this briefing note provides an opportunity for the committee to consider a subcommittee recommendation to provide further clarity with respect to the reimbursement of members' attendance at community events by donation. So members will have seen in the enclosed decision note that the policy provisions will ensure that the event is nonpartisan in nature, and that the ticket price may include a meal or beverage. However, further to the discussions at the subcommittee level, one change was made to the briefing note, and there is no reimbursement cap on these community event tickets. So a revised proposal is brought forward on page 1 of your briefing note for this agenda item, which simply ensures that the member's guide to policy and resources is amended to provide for the eligibility for reimbursement from constituency office funds for members' attendance at nonpartisan community events by donation.
Okay. Any comments? Questions? No. Then may I have the motion as presented, it's on the screen.
Moved.
Moved and somebody seconded. It's been seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Number 7, constituency office communications. Artur.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this is a recommendation coming forward from the Subcommittee on Administration and Operations. Constituency Office Communications is a policy matter that's been considered by your committee and by its advisory subcommittees over the past couple of years. And there are some further modifications to the policy that have been brought forward to streamline and clarify policy provisions and hit that, hopefully, target of reasonability. The amendments made by the subcommittee are noted in the attachment to the decision note before you today. As noted in the briefing note, it does include examples of eligible communications and ineligible communications, but these are not exhaustive lists. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Speaker, I just have one. Sure. So on page 3 of the backgrounder, there just appears to be an inconsistency under the overview section. It says in that first paragraph, constituency office communications cannot include political party or caucus logos / branding. And then the last bullet that follows in the list there says eligible content includes advertising and messages that include the caucus logo / branding. That would just appear to be an inconsistency that we should just make sure we're totally clear about.
Good catch. Artur?
Yeah, thank you for that. We'll ensure that that's corrected in the version that's posted on the member's guide to policy and resources, and that's communicated to members. the intent of the subcommittee discussion, as I recall, it was to not include caucus logos and branding, but to provide for some more flexibility when it comes to colors.
Okay. So then, as Todd suggested or pointed out, so that last bullet will be then
It will be removed from the version of the policy that's posted on the Members Guide to Policy and Resources, and that's communicated to members and caucuses, correct?
Okay.
Except
All right, with that clarification, members, any further discussion or comments?
Mr. Speaker, may I just make a quick comment?
Sure. Yeah, please.
Sure. I think what the conversation, I believe Michelle was the one that brought that up, so I could stand corrected, but it was the notion that some of the things that we had previously brought forward did have caucus branding on it. For example, say we wanted to do a Remembrance Day post, sometimes we will put it as like a caucus, and we'll take a group ad, or say it's sometimes group ads will be taken out on behalf of caucus. So I'm fine either way. It's just, I think that's what had been brought up previously.
Okay. Artur?
And I'm sorry, my recollection is fuzzy, but my understanding was that the example that Michelle brought forward at the subcommittee was in relation to ad buys that were purchased by the caucus and not using constituency office funds.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
So then I'll just put the motion on the screen that it be as amended, reflecting the amendment that Todd flagged.
Okay, and that is that the revised constituency office communications policy provisions in the members' guide to policy and resources will be approved as amended. May I have somebody to move it?
Moved.
It's been moved. Somebody to second it. It has been seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Now, next one is number 8, childcare facilities. Discussing the recommendation from the subcommittee on administration and operations. Kate.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So today I'm bringing forward an opportunity for the committee to provide a decision on the latest proposal for an employer-sponsored childcare facility on the legislative precinct. The Subcommittee on Administration and Operations has reviewed this proposal and recommended that we develop a detailed project plan and establish a working group with caucus representation to oversee development and to inform our next steps. In essence, I'm seeking your approval to move forward with the recommended decision items, 2 decision items, so that we have the overall direction we need to do the groundwork and return to LAMC seeking formal project approval on a detailed concept plan. We anticipate returning to the committee for approval by the end of this fiscal year. So this is the first in a series of decision points and opportunities to provide input that will ensure a facility meets the needs for the precinct families and for the surrounding community. As I said, there will be further opportunities to address concerns, mitigate risk, or even rethink the project before committing to build a new facility. As we go over the proposal details, I'll just note that the financial projections, which have been incorporated into your briefing material, are quite high-level conservative estimates meant to give a general cost comparison between options. We expect the actual project costs will be lower than projected. And in order to protect our commercial interests, committee members receive cost projections, but the exact amounts I'm hoping we won't address in the on the record discussion here this morning. I'm sure members will appreciate that there are many benefits to pursuing medium and long-term solutions with respect to a childcare facility on the precinct grounds. Certainly, it would be an important component of modernizing our workplace and fostering a more family-friendly work environment. It would also enable us to create important supports structures for parents and caregivers, especially many women who work within the legislative environment. With respect to the key elements of the decision point, you'll see the proposal is a multi-age group childcare program with 37 spaces available, which is 25 spaces for children 3 to 5 years old and 12 spaces for infant and toddlers under the age of 3. This is seen to be the most sustainable business model, supporting families with multi-age young children and allowing children to stay in the same facility as they age out of the infant and toddler care program. So as per the decision note, we're seeking your support at a high level to pursue a detailed project proposal for a modular facility in the medium term to be placed on the back south lawn, and a facility incorporated into the proposed redevelopment of the Armories building as a longer term option. So with respect to the timeline, the modular facility is expected completion within 1 year of construction, and the Armories facility would be an expected completion of about 4 to 5 years, contingent on the Armories development project overall. So there are two motions with respect to the decision note that is brought forward to the committee this morning. I'm pleased to answer any questions that members may have.
Any question? Corley, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, just the first thing is I wanted to clarify the background information in the discussion. I was very clear that my concerns on going with a modular or any direction that we should take. First, I fully support childcare on the facilities, but two, the fundamental premise should be that security is taken into consideration. When we start looking at other items that are identified in the agenda, my concern wasn't that the consideration be given to safety and adherence to standards outlined in the Community Care and Assisted Living Act. We all know that we have laws that we need to fundamentally follow. My concern was that the unique nature of the legislative precinct, that any consideration that we make for childcare, we need to make sure that safety is paramount. So whether you have protests or whether you have the items that we are later discussing in this agenda, any movement that we make to ensure that we have childcare on site, safety has to be absolutely considered. The second piece that was critically important in that discussion was that there was conversation that based on the changes with the electoral boundaries and decisions that are coming forward in the next year, that the Armory project should be brought forward in consideration at the same time as this discussion, in case there's the ability for us to move that project forward in a faster fashion. So I am wondering, Mr. Speaker, if we could possibly move this discussion to the next agenda and at the same time bring the Armory project discussion at the same time so we can discuss that. Because if we're talking 2 years difference and we're putting a whole bunch of money out on a modular that doesn't necessarily, how does that fit in the safety plan? How does that fit in all of the other pieces that we're looking at? When we all know that the Armory project is going to have to move forward because with the electoral boundaries and the increase in member seats, we just don't have, we are going to have to be doing some adjustments at the legislature. So with that, I'm hoping that we could move, for consideration of the committee, move this to the next meeting and put the Armories project alongside with it.
Anybody else? The next, sorry, Gary.
Thank you, Chair. Corley brings up an important point that I hadn't thought of at all, which is the security profile, if you will, of the legislature is or will be impacted by the presence of a child care facility on site. So I think it's important that we perhaps Ray or Laps do a little impact study to determine what it does to our overall security profile. I hadn't thought of that, candidly, but I think it's an important consideration in relation to the overall security profile for the legislature, and may, depending upon the results of the study, cause us to reassess the entire security profile at the legislature.
Okay. Kate.
Yeah, thank you very much. I very much appreciate members' very good questions and observations around both the importance of security on our legislative precinct, particularly with a proposed additional new facility being contemplated for the grounds. As I mentioned, the direction that we're seeking from your committee this morning is very high level to, in essence, undertake work to prepare a more detailed concept plan. There have been a range of potential options placed in front of the committee from time to time. And in order for us to work carefully with consultants and those who have expertise in the design of modular space, as well as the Armories project, we will be very much looking for your direction today to continue that very initial planning stage. I'm anticipating a project update would be brought to LAMC in about 2 months' time, which would give us a much clearer idea of all of the needs with respect to and feasibility with respect to the modular facility. In conjunction with our Director of Precinct Services, who is also helping lead our Armories project, I'm anticipating that the Subcommittee on Administration and Operations will also be receiving an update on that project very soon as well. So members will be well equipped with a more detailed proposal with respect to the modular option, the medium-term option, as well as the Armories option in the weeks ahead. With your support today, though, we will be able to undertake a much more fulsome set of discussions and consultations to be able to inform that project update back to your committee within the weeks ahead.
Okay, any further comment, Todd?
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. So just following on Gary's point and Coralie's comments, I do feel that we're kind of putting the cart before the horse here in terms of being asked today. Like the option that's being recommended, as I understand it, is not to bring forward a plan. It says on page 5, option 1, establish a modular facility on the back southwest lawn, and there's a very specific, dollar figure provided for. Not a lot of other details. So to Kate's comments that she's just made, if there's more substantive details forthcoming, then I think that it would be more appropriate for this committee or for LAMC to consider those options, whether it makes sense to focus on an interim solution as being proposed here in this modular project, or to roll that into a broader and larger project that relates to the Armories. And regardless of those two, I do think it's very sensible that that any net new building on the precinct, modular or otherwise, that be fully considered within the security context and the security profile of the legislature. And I don't see that information here today. So I don't think anyone's suggesting that this be put off for another year or anything like that, but perhaps in time for the December 13th meeting, we could have the more fulsome details as to how this fits into the security view of where we're going at the legislature, and I'd be more comfortable being asked to make a decision where I have the two options that are much more built out and better understood, I think, going forward, as opposed to what I see in this decision note here today.
Kate, so between now and December 13, can your committee put some information together, what the members are asking for?
Yes, I'd be happy to do some further work on the proposed project plan. Just for clarity, the 2 decision items which are being brought forward today are on page 1 of the briefing note. First, that a project plan be prepared to establish a modular childcare facility on the legislative precinct is the first motion. And then the second proposed motion was that plans for the proposed redevelopment of the Armories include a childcare facility. I'm certainly happy to bring forward a project update at the December 13th meeting. I know that we were hoping to be in a position with your support today to do some additional groundwork, to meet with some consultants, space planner, to pull together as much information that we could to inform any decisions that would be made on December 13th. That would certainly provide us with ample opportunity to factor in through Ray Robitaille, our Sergeant at Arms, any security considerations with respect to either design.
Anybody else has any issue?
I think Adam has his hand up, Mr. Speaker.
Adam, yes, sorry. Didn't see it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. So as long as that is part of a plan, an outline as to the security posture that's needed in order to protect not only the precinct but also a childcare facility, I'm prepared to move as long as when we see that in December, we see the childcare component to it. I'm prepared to move forward with those two motions on page 1.
Okay, Corley?
Again, I'm just trying to understand. So I don't sit on the finance committee, but I do know a significant budget item was brought forward for the modular. And again, I think it's premature for us to talk about that without talking about the Armory project. If we can move the Armory project, and if you look at what was presented to our committee, that presentation should be made available to all members of LAMC so that they understand that we could very well be moving this project forward in the spring. So if we are starting that conversation, wouldn't it be better to look at how we build in the security, a proper childcare facility on the footprint of the legislature? Wouldn't it be worth us having a little bit more conversation on that? Because at this point, without having some of those details answered, I will not be supporting moving forward with the modular without us having an in-depth conversation of the Armory project and how we can move that forward.
Okay, Todd, then Adam.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with Coralie 100%. And I to Kate's comments a moment ago, I totally understand, the background of the context that was set in the first couple pages, but the recommendation on page 7 is very clear. Plan to establish a childcare facility for those who work on the precincts. Option 1 is being recommended right there to establish a modular facility on the back southwest lawn, and then the third is establish the working group and caucus representation and so forth. I just don't feel comfortable with the information at hand to say today, let's go forward and sign off on essentially sign off on moving forward with a modular facility until I understand what the Armories project looks like, and we understand the more intimate details around the safety and security protocols that Coralie has mentioned. And I just don't see why, if that information is at hand, why that couldn't be provided to us to have an informed discussion on December 13th.
Okay, Adam, then Gary.
So it was my understanding, Mr. Speaker, that 3 options had been presented, an option off-site, an option medium-term option on-site, which is this modular facility, and then another option was a more long-term solution that was going to be part of a redevelopment of the Armories building. My feeling on it is that there's a childcare need within the precincts and within the surrounding buildings that could accommodate a childcare facility, and that part of this whole initiative was to have a short-term or medium-term, I would say, if that's what we view next year, solution be developed on that back lawn while we were looking at a much longer-term solution that would be built right into a new facility should that occur. So that was my understanding of the situation, and the next stage of the process was to get that plan brought to us, which is the only motion that I'm prepared to support is the one on page 1. the recommendations I think that Todd was talking about were recommendations coming forward from a previous committee discussion. And so the only motions that I'm prepared to support are the ones on page 1, which are that we instruct our staff to come back with a report to outline not only what Coralie has raised, which is the security issues that I think Gary and Todd and others have raised it as well, which are totally, I mean, we're looking at security in a, overall in our constituency offices and personal security, all that makes total sense. But so the only motions that I'm prepared to move are the ones on the first page, which are simply to get staff to bring that report back, which is I thought where we were at.
Okay, thanks, Gary, then Corley.
Thanks, Chair. A general comment. I think that this discussion illustrates the need, in my view, Kate, for a decision-making matrix or a decision-making tree, whatever term you choose to use, so that when subjects like this arise, we can be confident that there is the impact, for example, on security, the impact on everything else in and on the grounds has been addressed. That's quite often in business what is done, so that there is a sign-in by everybody, so that we're not dealing in isolation and then later thinking of things like security or something else that happens. So just my desire for a matrix or a decision tree that's signed off by everyone, so that we're not acting in isolation when we make these decisions, which clearly have an impact on something else on the precinct.
Corley?
Mr. Speaker and Gary, thank you very much. I think that would be very helpful for us to have that, because many of us, you know, there's changes in membership on this committee. And I guess the question I have, the question I had around the Armory project, has the Armory project come to the full LAMC committee? One of the challenges I have with LAMC is there are 3 separate committees that are dealing, it feels often like silos. And I raised that the last meeting, that the security meeting I felt should have been part of the operations committee, but we have these silos of committees, and often some of the decision-making process, I find we are to approve items that sometimes are not in the same. For example, the finance committee, as I understand it, has already approved money for a modular. And I could be wrong, and I get that that has to come forward, or at least it was part of a discussion with a full schematic of what a modular would look like. And I guess my question going back is, has the Armory project come forward for a thorough discussion to the entire LAMC? Because I think that is a critical discussion, to Gary's point, in the decision-making process of how we move forward.
You group.
Well, I think this is an important discussion, but I lean towards what Adam has proposed here. My understanding is that we are talking about 2 things. The Armory building, it's a very important discussion. It may start sooner than we think, but my understanding is that it may take years to complete that project. So we are talking about childcare need, which is very important for a lot of people who are working in the legislature and members. What we are asking in this meeting, basically moving forward and asking the staff to bring back more fulsome information about this. And I think the security issue is very important. That could be probably part of that, information as well. If the Armory building, that may start sooner, but it may take years. But this is something my caucus members and staff members have been asking for almost, we have been having discussion on this for now 2 years. So I think it will be helpful for the committee to understand where we are with these options, with providing full information, of course, including the security information. As per the subcommittees are concerned, my understanding, Coralie, is that no subcommittee has the power to make decisions. They can make recommendations to the LAMC.
Kate?
Yeah, thank you very much, members, for the guidance. I very much appreciate the discussion today. With respect to the Armory's redevelopment project, members of the Subcommittee on Administration and Operations received an overview of that project on November the 2nd. So just a number of weeks ago, we had an opportunity with our Director of Precinct Services to walk you through the status of that project. So we have issued an RFP, as members will recall, in late 2021, which was awarded to an architectural firm. We're currently near to completion of the very first phase of that project, which is a conceptual design. So as we work towards finalizing project governance, one of the key priorities at this point in time is to look at the programming of that building. But the project team has advised that they are very close to being able to bring design concepts forward to members at the conceptual design phase of that project. So we are definitely nearing the opportunity to provide you with an important milestone update on that conceptual design. After that point, just at a high level, there will be further work to create an indicative design, which outlines a number of seismic options. I believe there are three phases or three stages of seismic resiliency, which will be put in front of the committee as well. And then a formal business case will be brought forward. And then we will be seeking from your committee project approval for the Armory's project. So still a number of steps still ahead of us, very similar to the childcare proposal that I brought forward today in terms of we're seeking your support that the modular option is one for which you would like to receive a more fulsome project plan, which would require your approval before we would actually go out to procurement. And then basically effective project approval would still occur after the procurement phase, even for the modular opportunity, the medium term option. But I hear from members how important it is for you to ensure that we have fully incorporated into our feasibility assessment at the earliest stage possible security considerations. So I'm happy to work with Ray and his team to ensure that the next phase, the project planning phase, will include those considerations. If time permits, at our meeting on December 13th, I'd certainly be happy as well to bring forward an update on the Armory's redevelopment proposal. So the entire committee will have the benefit of hearing exactly where we are with the redevelopment plan and to answer any questions you might have from a security perspective or otherwise.
So now the question is, you still need that general motion as suggested by Adam, or we should wait entirely until December 13th, then we will revisit it with additional information that we will have from the staff?
Well, I would like to work with our space planner to prepare a more detailed project plan as per the motion on page 1. If it's premature for us to have the committee consider that motion, I'm in the hands of the members, Mr. Chair. I would certainly like to receive direction from the committee either now or December 13th to move ahead with the creation of a project plan with respect to the modular facility.
Okay.
Let's wait till we get the additional information for the 13th.
So we will return to the committee then, if time permits, on December 13th.
Okay. So we'll leave it until then.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's move on then to item number 9, 2021-22 accountability report. Kate, please, floor is yours again.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. So on this agenda item, we're bringing forward our draft accountability report for the 2021-2022 year. We're seeking consideration of the committee to adopt the report as presented. This is the last time that we anticipate preparing an annual report in this format, as now that we have had your approval to proceed with our new strategic plan. We're anticipating a change to our annual reporting cycle, as well as our goals and objectives and initiatives will, of course, align with those within our new strategic plan as compared to this older template. The draft accountability report brought forward to you includes on page 5 a number of operational highlights for the 2021-22 year. On pages 8 to 14, you'll see the original 4 goals and a number of key initiatives, which are highlighted. Some performance measures and indicators are included on page 15. And as per the Legislative Assembly Management Committee Act, Section 5, which requires the committee to report annually to the Legislative Assembly on decisions that it has made, we've also included on pages 16 to 18 a list of committee decisions. The overall report focuses on the key areas of operational support provided throughout the year, including our ongoing work to support the continuity of the institution through COVID-19, as well as important governance reforms, including the adoption of the first Legislative Assembly governance framework, which was adopted by your committee in January of 2022.
Any comments? Questions? Okay. And the motion is on the screen that the accountability report 2021-22 be adopted as presented, that it be deposited with the office of the clerk, and that the chair present the report to the Legislative Assembly at the earliest opportunity. May I have a mover? It's been moved. It's been seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Then we move on to item number 10. That is revised policy 1000, Legislative Assembly Policy Framework. Artur?
Thank you, Chair. And I apologize, I didn't quite capture this correctly on the covering note, but there are a number of changes that are coming forward for your committee's consideration as a recommendation from the Subcommittee on Administration Operations with respect to Policy 1000, Legislative Assembly Policy Framework, which is the foundational policy at the Legislative Assembly. The changes which are noted in red line form in the documents that you have before you include the addition of clarity in policy areas and the approvals to which policies are subject, whether they are by your committee or by the clerk, adding clarity and parameters around the issuance of interim directives, that's in section 6, adding clarity on the authority by whom policy exceptions can be authorized, that's in section 9, and then some other minor editorial and housekeeping modifications that, as I said, are noted in red line form.
Okay. Any discussion? Or Todd?
Thank you, Speaker. I'm just wondering if, section 9, the policy exceptions, it refers to the exceptions that can be granted by the Speaker. I'm just wondering if $5,000 is a high enough threshold, or would it be more appropriate to be $10,000? And maybe I don't want to belabor this point because I know this has been this is the product of work at a different committee and so forth. But I'm wondering, perhaps, Kate, you could just give us a sense of, in your view, if the 5,000 encapsulates all the scenarios that you might be able to imagine, or if a slightly higher threshold would give you just a little bit more breathing room.
Artur?
So yeah, I know the question was put to Kate, but I'll jump in if that's okay. Maybe just for comparison, we did think that the 5,000 threshold was reasonable. In the last Parliament, there was a delegation of authority of a similar nature that was to the Subcommittee on Finance and Audit, and that was in the amount of $10,000. So if that figure sits well with the committee, we can certainly make that modification.
Kate?
Yeah, I don't have any additional information to share. I do think that the $10,000 amendment is still reflective of a prudent and accountable approach. I think the main provision that is important to me is that we demonstrate accountability through reporting of these exceptions, but the threshold amendment is a prudent one, I feel.
Todd, any further comments on that?
No, I'm good. I would be happy to see the number 10,000 if others on the committee support that. If not, it's not a hill to die on.
Okay. Any other member? All right. Then let's,
Mr. Speaker, I think Gary.
Gary, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, but I think that it's important that we look at this in the context of the nimbleness of the organization that we're trying to achieve here. And I agree with Todd, $10,000 is a much more reasonable expense, which allows us to have a nimble process rather than this continual downgrading. Thank you.
Okay, so it's proposed that we amend the amount from 5,000 to 10,000. Is that acceptable to the members?
Sorry.
Do we need a motion for that? Arthur?
I'll capture that, Mr. Speaker, that the policy's been modified and the motion will just read as amended rather than as presented, and I'll put that on the screen.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, now the motion is that the revised policy 1000 Legislative Assembly Policy Framework be approved as amended. May I have a mover? It's been moved. Seconder? It's been seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now to the main motion. Do we need a main motion or is this already amended? Sorry. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Let's move on to next item, item 11. Revised Policy 3030, non-budgetary cycle, capital project review and approval. Artur.
Thank you, Chair. Just picking up on Gary's comments about nimbleness, this is a recommendation coming forward from the subcommittee on audit and finance with respect to proposed modifications to non-budgetary cycle capital project review and approval thresholds in particular. What we've done with this policy is refined the objective and the scope just to provide clarity that applies to capital expenditures that arise outside of the normal budgetary cycle. We've revised, streamlined, and simplified policy provisions for clarity and in alignment with changes to organizational and governance structures within the Legislative Assembly. As I noted, we've revised the approval thresholds as outlined in section 2.04, placing greater delegated authority to both the clerk of the Legislative Assembly and to the Subcommittee on Finance and Audit. We've increased what we consider to be a project contingency threshold and also updated some definitions and language throughout the policy. This approach, we believe, is going to increase our agility as an organization given challenging market and supply chain conditions at the current time.
Any comments? None? Then let's have the motion on the screen. It would read that the revised policy 3030 non-budgetary cycle capital project review and approval be approved as presented. We have a mover. Been moved. Seconder, seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, let's move on to item number 12 then. 2022-23 quarter 1 and quarter 2 policy non-compliance and exception report. Kate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of our Executive Financial Officer, Randy Smith, we're bringing forward this quarterly report for the period September up to September the 30th. To the best of our knowledge, only one instance of policy non-compliance has been brought forward and is requiring reporting. So that is one instance of an exception to our procurement policy, which is described in a bit more detail on the reverse of the briefing note with respect to the nature of the exception that was made with respect to that with that matter. As has been noted, this is an important accountability mechanism for us and is found within our Legislative Assembly policy framework, the policy 1000, which we were just talking about a moment ago. Randy and I'd be pleased to answer any questions you might have.
Any question? Comments? No. All right, then I think we need a motion.
No motion required. This is just an information item, Chair. I think your motion is probably to move in camera now.
Okay. So all those items up to this stage on the agenda have been dealt with. Next item is to have a motion to move into in camera to consider security, legal and personal matters. May I have a motion, please? It's been moved, seconded, all in favor? Opposed, carried. It's been moved, seconded, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you, members. So we'll see you on December 13th.